The house on Elmwood Lane was supposed to be a fresh start. For Claire and her husband, Mark, it was a chance to leave their cramped apartment behind and give their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, a backyard to play in. But from the moment they stepped inside, something felt off. The first sign was the shadows. Claire noticed it while unpacking boxes in the living room. The sunlight streaming through the windows cast long, dark shapes on the walls, but they didn't move as they should. When she waved her hand, her shadow flickered, but the others stayed still, frozen, as if watching her. She shook her head, blaming exhaustion, but the unease lingered. That night, the whispers began. Claire woke to a faint, rasping sound, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. She sat up, her heart pounding, and shook Mark awake. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. He listened for a moment, then frowned. "It's just the wind," he said, rolling over. But Claire knew it wasn't the wind. The whispers had a rhythm, almost like a chant. The next morning, Lily asked about the funny man in her room. "He was standing in the corner, Mommy," she said, her voice trembling. "He didn't have a face." Claire's blood ran cold, but Mark dismissed it as a nightmare. "Kids imagine things," he said. But Claire couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences multiplied. Objects vanished and reappeared in odd places. A spoon in the bathroom, Lily's stuffed bear in the freezer. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the shadows seemed to follow them from room to room. Claire began to feel like she was being watched, even when she was alone. She'd catch movement out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned, there was nothing there. Desperate for answers, Claire dug into the house's history. The realtor had mentioned it was a foreclosure, but she'd left out the details. At the local library, Claire found an old newspaper article. The previous owner, a reclusive man named Harold Grayson, had disappeared 5 years ago. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises and seeing lights flicker in the house at night. The police had found no trace of him, but they did find something else, a hidden room in the basement, its walls covered in strange symbols and dried blood. Claire's stomach churned as she read the article. That night, she confronted Mark. "We need to leave," she said, her voice shaking. "This house, it's not safe." But Mark refused. "We can't just walk away from this investment," he said. "It's probably just old pipes or something." The next day, Mark went to work, and Claire decided to investigate the basement. The air was damp and cold, and the single bulb flickered as she descended the stairs. In the corner, she found the hidden room. The door was ajar, and inside, the walls were covered in the same symbols from the article. The floor was stained dark, and the air smelled metallic. As she stepped inside, the whispers grew deafening, and the shadows on the walls began to move on their own. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her. Claire screamed, pounding on the wood, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers turned into laughter, low and guttural, and the shadows closed in around her. She felt something cold and sharp brush against her skin, and then nothing. When Mark came home, the house was silent. He called for Claire and Lily, but there was no answer. In the basement, he found the hidden room open, the symbols glowing faintly in the dark. On the floor was Claire's phone, still playing a recording of her voice. "Help me. Please, help me." Mark never found them. The house on Elmwood Lane remains empty, its windows dark and its secrets buried. But if you listen closely on a quiet night, you might hear the whispers. And if you're foolish enough to step inside, you might just meet the faceless man in the shadows.